What's up, everybody? Going down this weekend, we got UFC Vegas 116, Aljamain Sterling versus Youssef Zalal, and this is going to be my full card breakdown and prediction. Let's rock and roll right into it. Alencar versus Julia Polastri. Alencar, not very good on the feet, very hittable, no head movement, very much lacking striking fundamentals, but she has a solid ground game. So if she's going to win this fight, she's going to want to get the fight to the floor. We saw that against Dos Santos. She's got a strong ground game, but if you were able to stuff the takedowns and keep her on the feet for long periods of time, she is very, very clueless, and we've seen that, right? Vanessa Demopoulos in that matchup against Ariana Carnelosi was able to get her down and submit her to where if you don't make her work on the feet and you allow her to get her hands locked and take you down, Alencar can be a problem for just about everybody because she has a very high-level grappling skill set. But that is with the jiu-jitsu. When it comes to the straight wrestling and mixing in the judo and the trips and the sweeps to be able to get you down, that is where she tends to struggle. So it's going to be important for Julia in this fight to not pressure too heavy to where you're overextending on your shots and giving your hips to Alencar. Make her come to you, pressure her, make her uncomfortable, but don't overswing giving her easy entries on the takedowns. Make her work for those because I think that this is Julia Polastri's fight to lose. I mean, we've seen on the Contender Series, got the submission victory, lost to Josephine Knudsen, right? Was able to beat Corey McKenna, lost to Lupita Godinez, struggled with some of the wrestling in that fight, but Lupita, a way better striker than Alencar. And it's not like Polastri, got the doors blown off her in that fight. She had some moments and then was able to get the finish over Karolina Karakiewicz, which that's a pretty good win. So for me, this comes down to the fact that if Alencar can get the fight to the floor and keep Julia on the deck, maybe she could submit her, win on control time, and get the job done. But Alencar, to me, is kind of depending on a submission here, and she's a very one-dimensional fighter from what I've seen so far, and Polastri's going to have a pretty sizable reach advantage here. She is the much better striker, and Polastri's takedown defense is suspect, but she does have a solid jiu-jitsu game. Not as good as Alencar, I don't think, but good enough to be able to defend some of the takedowns, keep the fight on the feet to where she has a massive advantage. And I think while Alencar does have the grappling edge, I think the gap is closer there than compared on the feet where Polastri is way better than Alencar. So I'm going to go Julia to get the job done here by decision, but I could definitely see a scenario to where if Toledo is heavily failing on takedowns to where she's just going to melt and Polastri can get her out of there with a mid to late round TKO stoppage. But I will side with a decision in this fight. I think Alencar will have some early grappling success. She will start to slow down. Polastri will put the striking on her and be able to beat her pillar to post, win the second and third round, maybe even the third as well. But like I said, Alencar, very dependent upon getting the fight to the floor. I don't think she does it consistent enough. Polastri, way better on the feet. Give me the striker with a decent enough ground game to get the job done. To me, Julia's fight to lose here. Next, we have Max Griffin versus Victor Valenzuela, excuse me. This is a tough one because it's tempting to pick the veteran here in Max Griffin, and I really I was kind of banking on myself picking Max Griffin in this fight, but the more I think about it, I don't think you're crazy to pick Max Griffin in this fight. He's going to be a little bit taller. He's going to have about a 5-inch reach advantage in this matchup. And Max Griffin, 20-12, a wealth of UFC experience. He's been in the business for forever, been in the promotion for forever, and he's fought really good opposition. It's not like Max Griffin is fighting scrubs for the most part. And I know towards the back end here, it's not like it's this, murderer's row of schedule, right? Beating Tim Means, split decision. Keep that in mind. Right? Michael Morales did not get stopped by Michael Morales, but we've seen that Morales has gotten much better, since these guys fought. Right? Jeremiah Wells, split decision. Lost to Michael Chiesa, was getting touched up on the feet a little bit by Michael Chiesa. And I know Chiesa is a very good grappler, so not a horrible loss, but still was getting touched up a little bit. And then lost to Chris Curtis on the feet. Very competitive fight. Curtis was coming down to welterweight at the time. The deal with Max Griffin is I think he's the more technical striker. He's the guy that has all the experience. He's got better lateral movement, and I think he's the more technical overall guy. But he's 40 years of age, and when the hell is the last time that Max Griffin has knocked somebody out? It's been a long time. I think it's been, since like 2021 or something like that, and maybe he gets a KO in this fight. Maybe, he crafts one up here. Victor gets overzealous and walks into a shot because this is a pretty big step up in competition. My problem for Max Griffin is, yes, he's been in there with guys that are UFC savages, veterans, whatever you want to say, that have been around for a while and fought the who's who. I get it all. But even when he's winning, he's not really separating himself. And he's got a guy in Victor Valenzuela here who lost to Michael Oliveira on the Contender Series, which I don't think that age is going to end, or that loss is going to end up aging very poorly, because I think we got to get this dude Oliveira a fight, by the way. This dude's super dangerous, right? But outside of that, we've seen Victor's incredibly dangerous, man. Very, very dangerous on the feet. He's got ferocious power, just got a knockout win 2 weeks ago. And to me, this is all about the UFC trying to get Max Griffin the heck up out of here. And I think in this fight, the grappling might cancel out. And you got the footwork and the veteran poise and movement of Max Griffin, where he throws good straight shots down the pipe. But to me, he's a guy that's been a little bit gun shy when it comes to pulling the trigger and sitting on power shots. And if you're going to do that in this fight, I can see a 32-year-old who's happy to have this opportunity. Griffin, towards the end of his career here, he's been having these super close fights. And if you're having super close fights with, again, guys that are veterans that have been around for a while, what happens when you're in there against a young guy that's going to be happy to be in the UFC, that's very dangerous, really good Muay Thai style of striking, ferocious, powerful leg kicks to slow down the movement of Griffin, rips that nasty left hook to the body to then bring the shots around the guard upstairs. I just think Victor Valenzuela, while, Max Griffin is the more technical overall fighter, at 40 years of age, and I think that this is a short notice fight for both guys, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know that Griffin was scheduled to be on this card or not. I'm not quite sure on that, but Valenzuela just fought. So he's a guy that was just in camp. This is a big opportunity for him. You really think the UFC is just trying to do Max Griffin some sort of solid favor here at 40 years of age, putting him in the apex against some new guy? I don't think so whatsoever. Victor Valenzuela is a fight finisher, and I think in this fight, he's going to be able to get Max Griffin out of there. And I'm going to say a round 2 KO. And I know that Max Griffin is historically very durable, and I get it. He survived against Michael Morales, and we can give him a participation trophy for that. Very possible that Griffin could go out here, craft up a decision, stick and move. But even these fights that he's winning, man, are so close. And I know Wells at least, has a ton of UFC experience. Same thing for Tim Means. Victor Valenzuela, to me, is much more dangerous than those guys. This guy's a striker. He's got the power, and I think he's going to pressure Max Griffin, not be afraid to get in his face. And I don't know if Griffin's going to he's got some sting, but he doesn't have that one-hitter quitter power that I think is going to scare Victor Valenzuela. I struggle with this guy's name. I'm sorry, man. Valenzuela. I don't think Victor, double V squared, I don't think is going to be intimidated by Max Griffin whatsoever. Griffin, to me, has slowed down quite a bit throughout the years. He's still very good. Might be able to craft one up and get it done. I'm going to go with the young guy here that is very dangerous and is hungry for this opportunity. Was just in camp. I like that. I think he goes out here and puts on an impressive performance against Max Griffin. I'll say knockout, kind of the battle of attritions, able to rip to the body, slow him down, make him more of a sitting duck, beat up the leg, and then get him out of there. If not, competitive decision, Victor will get it done. If not, I can see Max Griffin outscoring him or possibly exposing Victor and getting a late round stoppage. But I'm going to side with the younger guy here, who to me has more upside at this point in their career. Give me V squared. Next, we have Youssef Filho versus Cody Durden. Now, those of you that have been watching the channel, Youssef Filho is basically my dark horse of the featherweight, or not the featherweight, of the flyweight division. We got a couple of featherweights that we're going to be talking about, or I think they're bantamweights actually, so I was way off. I tried to save myself, but I just messed up. Flyweight. In the flyweight division, Youssef Filho, it's a dark horse, man. This dude right here, he very well could basically be undefeated in the UFC, if you think about it, right? I mean, how in the world Montague was able to get out of that, I think it was a knee bar, is beyond me. Anyone else is getting their knee shredded or is tapping or whatever. Montague just an absolute monster. And I think, even though he's not in the UFC, he should be. Got a big fight coming up with Adriano Moraes. Montague is undefeated and one of the best flyweights in the world. And he almost had him out of there with a submission. And then Montague ended up coming back and getting the sub. But again, almost a win there. Not to necessarily hand him a participation trophy, but still submitted Daniel Barres, right? Submitted O'Day Osborne, who's a ferocious striker on the feet, very fast. Was, almost, and I picked Nascimento to win this fight. I thought that Filho, he fumbled this, right? And he's one of these guys that's very submission over position, which that costed him in this fight, who, by the way, is a very good grappler, and Alan Nascimento, right? Most recently subbing Clayton Carpenter early in the fight. Clayton Carpenter's a really good grappler, and in my opinion, a much more dangerous grappler than Cody Durden. Let's just be real with this fight here. Cody Durden is on a 4-fight losing streak. Now, granted, Tumen Burrell, decent fighter, not nearly as good as Filho in my opinion. Nascimento, again, very good on the ground. Jose Ochoa, very, very explosive on the feet. Josh Van, last win almost 2 years ago against Matt Schnell. Jafel Filho is going to blow the doors off of Cody Durden and submit him in the very first round, man. And again, shout out to Cody Durden for stepping up and taking this fight. This will probably be his last fight in the UFC. And that's what I respect about Durden. Always willing to step up and fight anybody. He's 35 years of age. He's going to be at a little bit of a reach disadvantage here. But what we've seen from Durden, his boxing, it looks good early. And then we see questionable fight IQ. He dives in head first for these takedowns. You do that against Filho, he's going to snatch up the neck. Front headlock series. He's going to just pull off some sort of submission that way. And on the feet, Filho's very accurate. He's got some underrated striking. Rips good kicks to the body. A little bit of that open stance battle here. He's got some power in his hands. Throws that check left hook around the guard. I think Cody Durden at this point is definitely towards the tail end of his career. And he's shown that he can be durable. He's got some power, got some boxing, some volume, and he's a solid wrestler. But he doesn't do anything better than Jafel Filho, in my opinion here. So this was about keeping Jafel on the card. And, I think Filho blows the doors off of him and gets him out of there in the very first round. I think he drops him on the feet. Durden's going to be all hyped up in there, coming after him, trying to pressure him. Filho will counter him, drop him, hop on a submission, and get him out of there in the very first round. Jafel Filho will dominate Cody Durden in this fight. Again, props to Durden. Willing to fight anybody, anytime, any place. This on short notice. Maybe it plays in, where Cody's like, I got nothing to lose. My back, all the pressure's on him. It's not on me. I wasn't the one in camp necessarily. I'm just going to come in here and throw caution to the wind. Maybe that benefits him. I don't think so. I think Jafel Filho makes this look really easy. This guy is really, really good, man. And I think that he has top 5 potential in the flyweight division. Give me Filho by complete domination. He's way better everywhere. Next, we have Mayra Bueno Silva versus Michelle Montague. I don't trust Michelle Montague at all. I don't whatsoever, but I'm going to pick her to win this fight by decision. Now, granted, I did pick her. I think that this was her UFC debut against Luana Carolina. She was getting touched up on the feet. Now, to be fair, I think you could argue that Luana Carolina is maybe a better technical and dynamic striker than someone like Bueno Silva, who moves much better and is a southpaw, good movement, good kicks. So, decent threat on the feet in Carolina, but we know that Luana's takedown defense is very suspect, and Michelle Montague is a very good grappler. We saw that in the PFL. She's got a nasty rear naked choke, and that's like all of her submissions, I think, are by rear naked choke, if I'm not mistaken. You can see that here. I can't remember, but a ton of submission victories. Very good on the ground, solid jiu-jitsu skills, very good control, is a little bit of a moving heavy bag on the feet. Her defense is not very good. She's very, very hittable, but her striking has gotten a little bit better over her past few fights, but I still don't think it's great. We saw some moments against Carolina on the feet, but she's getting kind of lit up. And this, to me, I don't even want to say that it's a massive step up in competition, because Mayra Bueno Silva, something just isn't right, man. And ever since this with Holly Holm, and I think she popped her, I don't even remember the whole situation there, but it just feels like ever since then, it just all went downhill. Raquel Pennington, I think that was a title fight, right? I don't remember. Mayra Bueno Silva, I don't know, man. It just hasn't been the same fighter since really this Holly Holm fight. And then the fight with Raquel Pennington, it just feels like her way, she's kind of on her way out the door. And I know Mayra Bueno Silva, she's got some Muay Thai, capabilities on the feet, elbows, knees in close, decent leg kicks, waddles like a duck on the feet. She's got horrendous footwork. Her takedown defense is not very good, but she is pretty good off of her back. She's got a solid submission game. And I think if she stops the takedowns and keeps the fight on the feet, that could favor her, because I do think she's a better striker than Michelle. The problem is I can't trust Mayra to just pull the trigger, man. She's became very gun shy, doesn't really open up and doesn't really give herself a chance to win in any of these fights. And I've been fading her in basically all of these. Right? Just got outscored by Cavalcanti, right? Jazz DeVicious, right? Had some issues with the grappling and even getting touched up a little bit on the feet there. So Michelle Montague, clear path to victory here. Take down Bueno Silva, put her on her back. Bueno Silva sometimes a little bit too content to play the guard game off of her back. I think she's going to spend a ton of time there. Montague will win probably 30-27, if not 29-28, control-based decision. Should be an easy win from Michelle Montague. But if Silva, her back's to the wall here, if she loses this one, she might find her way out of the UFC. So maybe she comes out with more of an urgent game plan and comes after her and tries to put it on her, because I think she's better, actually. I just think she's the better fighter, but I can't trust her. She hasn't looked good in a while. I think it's, kind of a mindset thing at this point. 34, seems like she had her time. Michelle Montague on the up. Bueno on the Silva on the down. I'll go ahead with Michelle Montague here. She showed me a little bit more fight in her game recently and seems to be the hungrier person. I'll go Michelle Montague by a control-based, boring decision. Next, we got Cedric Dumas versus Jackson McVey. I mean, two guys that I think are really low level. I don't think Cedric Dumas is UFC caliber whatsoever, and a win over Denis Tulullin means like absolutely nothing. Got knocked out by Ruzaboyev. Michal Oleksiejczuk, Zachary Reese, there was the groin shot, and then got submitted by Dante Johnson. And look, Cedric Dumas, 6'2", 79-inch reach. He's got a solid frame for this weight class. Some nights his striking looks good. Some nights his grappling looks decent. And other nights it just looks like what the heck's this guy doing? And he's very unreliable. And some fights he looks like he could possibly put something together. And then there's other fights to where the minute any adversity presents itself, Cedric is up out of there. And I think in this fight, he's going to battle some early adversity early on, because while Jackson McVey had a little bit of hype, not a lot of hype, but you know what I mean? A lot of the hardcores up, man, Jackson McVey, look out. The Moose, 6'4", 77-inch reach, training over at the MMA lab here. The guy's pretty good. He's good in the clinch. Good long front kicks up the middle, good knees, good elbows, and his clinch game, I think, is going to be the money spot for him in this fight. And his ground game is pretty good. I mean, took this fight, I think it was on short notice against Bruno Ferreira, who, I mean, would do horrible things to Dumas in a matter of seconds in the very first round. So Bruno Ferreira, to me, is probably, a top 20 middleweight? Very powerful, well-rounded, and then lost to Zachary Reese. Not the greatest look, because Zachary Reese has really been exposed recently, but I'm going to go Jackson McVey. I think he gets the job done. I'm going to say he gets a first-round submission. I think he moves forward. We see in the first round, Jackson McVey is very, very dangerous. Good long front kicks, kicks to the body, straight long punches. I think he'll just move forward into range, get a hold of Dumas, put him up along the octagon side, get to the clinch, knee him to the body, elbow him upstairs, and then eventually Dumas will kind of just fold forward, and then McVey will lock up some sort of submission and get him out of there in the very first round. It's going to be sloppy. It's going to be ugly. Going to be kind of low level, in my opinion, for UFC standards. But I think Jackson McVey at this point, I don't trust Cedric Dumas. Anything I've seen from this guy in the octagon seems to be very hit or miss. Any adversity presents itself, and he usually ends up getting finished. So I'm going to side with Jackson McVey in this fight. But we've seen McVey start fast, and he's a finisher. So if he doesn't get the early finish and this fight plays out, I think that can definitely favor Dumas in this matchup. Not to say that McVey can't outscore him and win a decision, but I think he's just going to get in the face of Dumas. I think that McVey is a guy that wants it more at this point in his career. Give me Jackson McVey to get this one done by first round sub. Next, we have Adolfo Vieira versus Eric McConico. Now, my gut is telling me that Adolfo Vieira is not going to win this fight. But then there's that other side of me that's like, just play the tactics game and go off of what we've seen in the UFC. And there is that side of me that is telling me Adolfo Vieira is going to win this fight. So brain says Vieira, but my gut is telling me Moicano is going to win this fight. So the question is, do I listen to my brain or my gut? And I will listen to my brain here and go with Adolfo Vieira by decision, but I can easily see this be a fight where I'm just going to be smacking myself going, dude, why didn't you listen to your gut? Because I think that there's a real chance that Vieira is not going to be the same guy since getting brutally KO'd by Bo Nickel 5 months ago. And Adolfo Vieira, to me, is a guy that has been massively overrated. Not that anyone said that Vieira's like some world champion or anything, but his grappling in MMA is very overrated. I know he's got the impressive jiu-jitsu background, very good jiu-jitsu player, but what we've seen in MMA, he's got a short reach in this weight class, only a 73-inch reach, moves forward into range, is very hittable, his defense isn't good, has cardio problems a lot of the time, but his striking actually has improved throughout his career. He's gotten very, very basic and gotten the fundamentals down, throwing good straight combinations, just touching you with the jab, firing an occasional right hand, but he's not very dangerous. He's not very dangerous, right? But what we've seen throughout his career, he was able to sub Cody Brundage, right? Was able to sub Arman Petrosyan, who's actually pretty dangerous on the feet compared to a guy like Eric McConico, who's shown some moments, right? Lost to Andre Petrosky. This was a close fight, though. But Petrosky had the wrestling to be able to negate the grappling, and Vieira just kind of got outstruck on the feet, which is not a great look, getting outscored by Petrosky, right? Was able to touch up Tresean Gore, and the takedowns weren't working, and he outstruck him. So that was actually a pretty decent win. I know Tresean Gore looked a little bit flat in that fight. He looked a little bit off, but he had a great performance against Azamat Bakoyev. So this, to me, just comes down to Eric McConico, a guy that I don't know is really UFC level, but having said that, he's had some moments in a lot of these fights. Not really against Ruzaboyev, got absolutely destroyed. But if you look at the Brundage fight, I kind of thought that Brundage won this fight. But either way, it was very close. And again, was having some moments. He's a southpaw striker, can stick and move. He's a good athlete. We saw against Bysingor Susurkayev, he was landing some shots. But this, to me, was more about Mr. Seuss fooling around in there playing way too much. Susurkayev should have finished Eric McConico in the first round. Bysingor needs to tighten it up and stop messing around so much in there. So I take that with a grain of salt. McConico, a little bit better than maybe what I originally would give him credit for. I have not picked him to win a fight. I actually think that this is a very winnable fight for him, to where if Vieira cannot get the takedowns, I see a world to where McConico is able to outstrike him on the feet, is able to pick him apart, win a decision, possibly even knock him out, because a guy like Vieira, who if he's not able to grapple well in this fight and he's stuck on the feet and he's getting touched up, where is his confidence going to be at after getting knocked out by Bo Nickel? But to be fair, Bo Nickel's pretty good, right? I mean, his grappling's really good. I know he lost to RDR, got exposed a little bit. It was too much too soon. But Bo Nickel's striking, he's got some heat on his shots, where I don't think McConico really does, even though you could say McConico, more of a technical-based striker, I guess. So I think McConico's maybe a lot more in this fight than what people think. I don't think Vieira should be some big favorite here, but I am going to go with Adolfo. I think he pressures him, mixes in the takedowns. Even if he doesn't get him, it'll make McConico a little bit more hesitant to open up on the feet, and Vieira can kind of touch him up with the simpletons boxing game of just throwing 1-2s the whole fight to get the job done. I'll say split decision, Adolfo Vieira, 29-28 over Eric McConico in a close one. I think this is closer than what some people might think. Give me Vieira to get it done. Next, we have Marcus Buchecha versus Ryan Spann. So this is one that I've went back and forth on because I don't think Marcus Buchecha is that good. I know that he's a high-level jiu-jitsu player, and we saw in one prior to coming into the UFC, we were seeing him heel hooking guys. We've seen that his grappling game is really good. I think it was this fight against Kane, I believe, was the fight where he was getting beaten to a pulp, man. I don't know how he didn't get stopped in that fight. I think it was this fight, if I'm not mistaken. It's on YouTube. He was getting beaten up bad, man. And that's the thing about Buchecha is his jiu-jitsu game is really good, and he is tough as nails. Tough as nails. Right? Comes into the UFC, and this loss hasn't really aged that bad because Martin Buday is someone the UFC should have brought back. Martin Buday, actually, I think outside of, didn't Shamil Gaziev, one of the greatest fighters in the history of the sport, I think he knocked out Martin Buday, right? And outside of that, Buday has been really good. So, not a bad win. Buday has a good ground game, kind of has the style to be able to negate what Buchecha does well. And then we had this disgusting fight against Kennedy and Nzechukwu where it was just a slop fest. But Nzechukwu had him in some trouble. Then Nzechukwu, he was in some trouble on the floor. We had all sorts of different drama, fouls, this, that, cage grabs. That fight was just a blob fest. That's what that was. So this is essentially, do I think Ryan Spann can finish Marcus Buchecha in the very first round? And if he doesn't, then he's probably going to just kind of crumble and melt, and then Buchecha will either submit him or win a blubbery decision. That's kind of what we're looking at here. And I'm going to side with Ryan Spann. I think that he is going to be able to put away Marcus Buchecha in the very first round. Now, it's very possible that he gets a club and sub here because we've seen from Ryan Spann, he's got a nasty guillotine, right? Standing guillotine, he'll drop down, pull guard, put you in it, which I don't think that would be a great idea here because if you don't get it, then you got Buchecha, who's a very good grappler on top of you. But I think on the feet, we've seen Ryan Spann as one of these guys, right, at light heavyweight, now coming up to heavyweight. He's got the speed. He's got the range. He's got the power. Going to have a couple-inch reach advantage here. Ryan Spann, when he's on, is a problem, dude. And I know that he lost to Waldo Cortez, but he was landing some shots early, and Waldo is very, very durable, right? And I know at light heavyweight, there were some things that were very questionable. But this guy, when he's on, he's got power in his hands, good technique on the feet, especially with the boxing. And if you throw the kicks, that's where maybe Buchecha can catch an early kick, take him down, wear on Ryan Spann a little bit. But I think Ryan Spann, whether he throws the calf kicks, which is kind of a low-risk kick of being caught, can beat up the lead leg of Buchecha, make him more of a sitting duck, get to him with the boxing, and get him out of there in the very first round. So I'm going to say Ryan Spann by round one finish, either a submission or a KO. I'll go with the TKO stoppage here, drops him. Referee has to step in as Spann's following up with some ground and pound. But if he doesn't get it done early, maybe he can outscore Buchecha and win a decision. But I think if it goes past the first round, Spann's not able to get him out of there. Buchecha will blub and grapple his way to a decision victory over Ryan Spann, maybe even find a submission at some point in the fight. Because as good of a jiu-jitsu player as Buchecha is in MMA, it hasn't looked particularly great. And I got some questions about his gas tank as well. I think Ryan Spann way better on the feet. Buchecha is very, very durable, but at some point, that durability, especially at heavyweight, I think is going to catch up to you. And I think Spann's going to be a lot faster, very precise with his striking. And we've seen Spann's ground game is actually decent. So I'm going to pick him to get this one done over Buchecha by round 1 knockout. Next, we got Montel Jackson versus Raoni Barcelos. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier in the card. These are basically my 2 dark horses of the bantamweight division. 2 guys that I feel like have been overlooked for a really long time. And I've had a hard time picking this fight because I feel like on the card, this is one of the ones where I'm like, man, I don't know. And I feel like it's basically the way it's going to play out. If you get the pick wrong, you're going to be like, I knew it because that's exactly how it was going to go. And then if you get the pick right, you're going to be like, yeah, see, I told you this is exactly how it was going to go. So it's pretty much Raoni Barcelos and his pressure-based grappling game mixed with pretty solid striking, a lot of volume, a lot of output, moving forward, a guy that's really kind of hit his prime later in his career here at almost 39 years of age. I mean, he's riding a nice 4-fight win streak, and even the loss to Kyler Phillips, not a horrible loss, right? Was able to submit Christian Quinones, who's a pretty dynamic striker, a little bit overrated, but still a decent fighter. The Peyton Talbot, this was a massive upset victory, right? Talbot's actually looked really good since then, but dominated him on the ground. Dominated him, right? Was able to beat Cody Garbrandt. Most recently, beat Ricky Simón and was able to outstrike him, which was actually pretty impressive. Was able to beat him up on the feet quite a bit. This is going to be an interesting fight here because Montel Jackson is a guy that it's just like he waits. He's still waiting. At the time of me recording this video, since the last fight, Montel Jackson is still waiting to throw the left hand since 6 months ago against Deiveson Figueiredo to where he should have won this fight. He should have won this fight, but he failed to open up. Right? Beat Daniel Marcos in a very close kind of pitter-patter decision win. Right? Was able to snipe Damon Blackshear with a straight left hand right down the pipe, and it's like, there we go. That's what he's capable of. Right? Took out Yaya with a nasty shot. Right? And that's what we've seen with Montel Jackson. He's rangy. He's going to have the reach advantage here. He's got a sniper left hand to where Barcelos kind of has the style to where he's going to be bobbing and weaving moving forward to where I can see Montel Jackson just sniping him with a straight shot down the middle and putting him away. But if he doesn't do that, he's very low output. He's very low output, and Barcelos is very high output. And we've seen, even though Jackson, I think, has a grappling background, we've seen him get out-grappled. We've seen him get taken down and not have a ton of urgency to work back to his feet. So in this fight, is it possible that Jackson could outscore Barcelos and win a decision based on damage? Sure. Drop him a few times, be able to get it done, damage-based decision. But from what we've seen from Jackson, he just refuses to be high output, man. Refuses. Now, having said that, we've seen Barcelos knocked out before. We've seen him move forward. We've seen that his chin can be somewhat suspect and he can get clipped on the way in and it can be a problem. But if he doesn't get clipped, I think the volume and the output is on the side of Barcelos in terms of the striking. I think the grappling advantage is on the side of Barcelos, and he also has submission upside. So I feel like Montel Jackson has got to drop him a few times to sway the judges to win, a decision here. And then also, Barcelos doesn't have to worry about the grappling in this fight. And I know that you could say, well, wait a minute here. Montel Jackson, not better. I don't think Montel's better than Peyton Talbot, but Montel's better than Garbrandt. He's better than Ricky Simón. But Cody Garbrandt has great takedown defense. Ricky Simón is a very good grappler to where Jackson, yeah, he's got some grappling, but he's really a better grappler than those guys. I'm not so sure. So, of course, I could see Jackson sniping Barcelos and getting him out of there, winning a damage-based decision. But I'm actually going to side with the old head here in Raoni Barcelos. I think that he's going to be able to grind this one out and win a 29-28 decision over Montel Jackson. But like I said, Barcelos, he's got that windshield wiper head movement to where he moves forward, kind of throws these looping punches to where I very much could see Montel Jackson, who's going to have basically an 8-inch reach advantage, being able to find a way to snipe Barcelos down the middle and be able to get him out of there. So, man, I'm struggling with this pick. I kind of want to pick Montel Jackson. I can't even lie. Do I want to pick Raoni Barcelos? I'll stick with my pick for Barcelos. For Barcelos. I just think, listen, if Jackson doesn't knock him out, I feel like Barcelos is the activity, the volume, the output. And again, that knockout loss was to Umar Nurmagomedov. Again, very good grappler. Jackson, we've seen, it was close against Deiveson Figueiredo, but I think you can make an argument that Barcelos is grappling. It's like up there with Figueiredo. Maybe not on the feet in terms of the dynamic striking, but he's got output. He's got a little bit of sting. He's got a submission game. Very high-level grappler. I'll stick with my pick here for Barcelos, but I would not be surprised if Jackson wins this fight. I feel like it's a coin flip fight. I'll go with Barcelos based on activity, and I feel like he has more ways to win. Where Jackson kind of banking on that sniper shot. throughout the course of 15 minutes. Give me Barcelos. Just worries me a little bit with the reach and height advantage that Jackson has. And he does have power. He's very good. Been high on Jackson, but I've also been high on Barcelos too. Give me Ronnie Barcelos to make it 5 in a row. Next, we got Davy Grant versus Adrian Luna Martinetti. I think Davy Grant is going to absolutely school Adrian Luna here. And I think he's going to get it done by decision and pretty convincingly. But having said that, it'll look pretty convincing to us, but it'll somehow still be a split decision to where I get worried that Davy Grant might get robbed, because there is no fighter that gets robbed more or is in these razor-close decisions, and it feels like Davy Grant won to where he doesn't win, right? I thought he beat Daniel Marcos, right? Obviously not against Jourdain, but Jourdain's good, landed the flying knee, was able to submit him, right? Was able to beat Dumont Blackshear. That was a really good win. Ramon Taveras is a good boxer. I think he's a better striker than Martinetti, especially when it comes to the boxing, right? These are good fighters, man. Blackshear's got a good ground game, right? The Marcos fight, Marcos is really good, right? Was able to stop a Sun Sao, and we've seen, obviously Davy Grant, 40 years of age, been around for a while. Where's he at? 15-8, but Davy Grant is always in the fight, man. He's a switch hitter. He's tricky. And I think that this is a very tough debut for Adriano Luna. And I know his record looks real pretty, man. And he's got some good striking on the feet, good kicks to the body, solid movement, a pretty good ground game to where if he can mix it up and land the more damaging shots, I could see him possibly KOing Davy Grant or winning a damage-based decision, making it a little bit more obvious to get the nod on the scorecards. But I mean, this was one of the greatest fights I've ever seen, right? Probably the greatest DWCS fight of all time against Mark Vologden, who just, went tooth and nail with John Castaneda. To me, that was a big step up for Vologden. Again, the point deduction in that fight, it ended up being a draw, but it was close. And I think that Davy Grant is better than a guy like John Castaneda. So in a way, I know that we're playing MMA math here. I think Martinetti's good. I think he's dangerous. I think that he's a guy that might be okay in the UFC at some point. But I think he's taking an L here. I think Davy Grant is a better grappler, at least if Martinetti takes him down. Davy Grant is very, very good on the ground. His jiu-jitsu slick. He can pull up submissions out of anywhere. And on the feet, the leg kicks, the kicks to the body, the kicks up the middle, mixing in the boxing as well. I think Davy Grant, even though he's 40, he still moves very well. A little bit worried about the durability, but he's got a great gas tank. He's a veteran. I think the savvy, crafty Davy Grant will craft one up here and find a way to make it look rather convincing over Adrian Luna Martinetti, 29-28. I'll say split decision because we've seen how close these Davy Grant fights go. I'm worried that Grant won't do enough to separate himself to where Martinetti will be winning these big moments. But I don't know, man. I think Davy Grant is very slick, and I think he'll be able to find a way to kind of school Martinetti in a lot of areas. This is a big step up in competition for Adrian. I think he's good, but Davy Grant is a very, very tough debut for just about anybody. Give me Davy Grant to style a little bit here and get this one done. Next, we got Rafa Garcia versus Alexander Hernandez. This is a really good fight because over at Bloodline, man, Rafa Garcia training with Cub Swanson and Larian Douglas and Danny Silva, those guys have been on one, right? The boxing has looked really good, and Rafa Garcia is coming off of a nice win over Jared Gordon. Now, to be fair, Gordon compromised coming into the fight, but not Rafa Garcia's fault. Before that, was able to beat Vince Pichel by a decision. Did get stopped on the ground by Grant Dawson, who's a really good grappler. So overall, Rafa Garcia doesn't really have, in my opinion, some standout win where we're like, wow, Rafa Garcia is like some surgical contender in the light heavyweight division. Now, having said that, he's very durable, solid wrestling, solid boxing, and he will not stop moving forward. And he's just one of these guys that's got that dog type of fighting style that is very, very hard to deal with. And I think that it's very possible Rafa Garcia could find a way to stop Hernandez as the fight plays out, melt him with pressure, volume, and output, or outscore him and win some sort of decision. But I'm going to favor Alexander Hernandez to get this one done by a decision. And it just comes down to, I know, knocked out Chase Hooper. Again, hasn't aged the best considering what we've seen from Chase Hooper. Knocked out Diego Ferreira, who, yeah, he's dangerous, throws a nasty overhand right, decent ground game, but is a little bit older. But before that, was able to beat Kurt Hollaball. Split decision win over Austin Hubbard a year and 6 months ago. Lost to Damon Jackson. So I feel like Alexander Hernandez is a little bit overrated. I feel like he's a little bit overrated, but in the lightweight division, I feel like this is a guy that's finding his footing. He's going to have a speed advantage in this fight. His movement is really good, and Garcia is one of these guys that will kind of head you off, move forward, mosey into range, and that's where Hernandez really tends to thrive, kind of setting you up and pulling you in to that precise right hand that he throws down the middle. So I could see Hernandez possibly catching Garcia with that right hand once again as Garcia gets overzealous, pressuring too much, getting caught in the middle of a combo. Hernandez kind of stings him with that right hand and puts him away. But I'm going to side with Hernandez to get this one done. He'll out-volume Garcia, land the more damaging shots, possibly hurt him a little bit in this fight. But I think this is competitive. I'm not counting out Garcia whatsoever in this fight. His teammates have looked really good. I think Garcia is improving. But I don't know. A lot of these wins, it's almost like, okay, Vince Pichel was, 40 years of age? You know what I'm saying? And I feel like a lot of these guys, there's kind of just question marks on a lot of these wins. So again, you just fight who the UFC puts in front of you, so it's not their fault. I got a little bit more questions about Rafa and what I've seen from him than I do Alexander Hernandez, where I know Hernandez has a ton of experience. He's got some power. He's going to have the speed and footwork advantage here. Give me Hernandez to play the matador role, walk him into some shots, and get the job done. I'm going Hernandez in a close one. I'll say 29-28 decision, Hernandez, but I do think Garcia will have moments. And I think in a way, Rafa's actually pretty underrated. Next, we have our co-main event of the evening. We have Norma Dumont versus Jocelyn Edwards. Jocelyn Edwards has looked really good, and I've been picking Jocelyn. I don't think I picked her against Perez, but I picked her, and I believe all of these fights, and she's looked really good. She's on, I believe, a 4-fight finishing streak to where we've just seen Jocelyn take her game to the next level at 30 years of age, finishing Vidal. Stopping Chelsea Chandler, right? Going out there, knocking out Priscilla Cachoeira. This was a very good performance against Nora the Great Cornholio, who's got nasty striking, but a little bit suspect on the ground. And we've seen from Jocelyn Edwards, I think she's more dangerous than Norma Dumont. I don't think that anybody's questioning that in this matchup. On the feet, Edwards, probably more power. In terms of the grappling, a little bit more dangerous. Even though Dumont's got a solid ground game, we've seen her jiu-jitsu's pretty good. She can get you out of there. I think Edwards is more dangerous than Norma Dumont on the feet. But the problem is this. Norma Dumont, in her career, has been in there with strikers that are much better than Jocelyn Edwards in terms of the technicalities, in my opinion. Like Arena Aldana, who I think has some of the best boxing in all of women's MMA. Norma Dumont was able to get the job done over her. And I think wasn't that the fight where Aldana got split open pretty bad? Was that at Noche, UFC, on one of those cards? I can't remember. At the Sphere, maybe? So I'm not sure on that. You might have to fact check me on that one. But either way, Norma Dumont beating Arena Aldana, very impressive. Most recently over Ketlin Vieira. I think Vieira is probably a better grappler than Jocelyn Edwards. But on the feet, Edwards does have some power. She gets a little bit ooga-booga and wide with the technique. I feel like this is one of those performances where Norma can stick and move, beat her to the punch with straight shots down the middle, attack the lead leg, and address the grappling if need be. I think Norma Dumont wins a close 29-28 decision over Jocelyn Edwards in this fight. I just feel like Norma's been a little bit underwhelming. I was high on Dumont. I still think she's very good, but in a way, I'm a little bit higher on Edwards. The finishing upside is there, but the fighters that she's finishing, the Nora the Great Cornholio submission victory is very good, right? Basically hurt her on the feet and then was able to sub her. That was pretty wild. But outside of that, not that great of opposition. Again, the UFC's just putting in front of her, who they do. So it's not Jocelyn's fault, but not, steep competition that she's finishing. So I feel like Norma's been in there with some fighters that are pretty dangerous. She's had the answers. I think she's able to get it done over Jocelyn Edwards via 29-28 competitive decision. Dumont, not the most dangerous, but I think she could stuff the takedowns, keep it on the feet, touch up Edwards, outscore, and get the job done. Wouldn't be shocked if Edwards gets this one done by landing the more damaging shots and getting some control time. Last but not least, we have arrived at the main event, and if you guys enjoy this video and enjoy this type of content, if you could do me a favor, please subscribe to the channel and hype the video. I would greatly appreciate it. Main event, we have Aljamain Sterling versus Youssef Zalal. Now, this is an important fight for the featherweight division because Youssef Zalal, ever since coming back into the UFC, right, he had that competitive fight with Ilia Topuria some time ago. Very clear that Zalal and Ilia have gotten much better since then. I believe that fight was on Fight Island. Youssef Zalal's been looking like a real problem, man. Right, taking out Billy Q with a sub, Jarno Aarons with a sub, Jack Shore sticking and moving and frustrating the heck out of Calvin Kattar, being Mr. Speedy Gonzalez, getting the job done, and most recently shooting that beautiful blast double and getting Josh Emmett out of there in the first round, running him over with the grappling, which is wildly impressive to do that in terms of taking down Josh Emmett and subbing him like that. That's unbelievably impressive to do that. But again, this stretch kind of washed up fighters in a way for Youssef Zalal. If not washed up, guys that aren't that good. And Aljamain Sterling is a former champion in the bantamweight division. And I know Aljo's almost 37 years of age, but look at the strength of schedule throughout Aljo's career. We know about the Jan fight, split decision with Henry Cejudo. That was a close one. Got knocked out by Sean O'Malley. I mean, this was kind of dirty by the UFC, just trying to force him to take a fight while Aljo was clearly not ready to do so. But either way, nice KO by Sean O'Malley, and then dominated Calvin Kattar in his move up to featherweight. That was very impressive. One of the greatest MMA grappling fights of all time with Movsar Evloev. Was incredibly fun to watch. Was going back and forth with Evloev in the grappling, and then most recently basically outstriking Brian Ortega on the feet for I can't remember. I feel like that was a 5-round fight or something. And wasn't that, I don't know, wasn't that a 5-round co-main event or something? So Aljo, either way, outscored Brian Ortega, was picking him apart with the just kind of the kicks from range, some boxing. The bottom line is, I feel like Aljo has fought the much better opposition, right? The one was an acting job for the ages over Petr Yan, but Yan threw the illegal knee, and then the rematch. It was a very close fight. Could have went to Yan, but either way, to have moments and control Yan on the ground is very impressive. It's very impressive, but it's one of the things where styles make fights. And I know Aljo's looked very, very good at featherweight. He looks very physically strong. His wrestling is really good. His jiu-jitsu skills are really, really high level, man. And I know Aljo, whiny at times and all those kinds of things, but Aljo's good. And what I like about his style is it's very him. Like when I talk about RDR, very RDR, right? Just has a style that's funky and awkward that just kind of molds around his skill set. And that's what you see with Aljamain Sterling. Can switch stances, very kick heavy, pretty good in the clinch. A little bit, not a ton of power in his hands. Is a little bit awkward on the feet, but it's tricky for guys to deal with. And when you're a guy like Youssef Zalal, who's this very technical striker, and you got to deal with this very awkward striker who's got very, very good grappling, that can pose a ton of problems. But I've been very high on Youssef Zalal, and I call him Mr. Speedy Gonzalez of the featherweight division. I think he's one of the fastest fighters in the UFC, especially the featherweight division. He just might be the fastest guy. He can switch stances on you. He can attack the lead leg, mix the kicks to the body. He's got really, really good knees and elbows in close. His boxing is pretty good. And this is in the Apex, so it's going to be the smaller octagon, which could favor Aljamain Sterling, making it a little bit easier to get closer to Youssef Zalal. This has the potential to be a very action-packed fight, but it also has the potential to be a snooze fest because these guys, to me, have styles that are almost kryptonite-esque for each other, to where Sterling, what would give him problems? A guy that is going to do a ton of moving around, really good footwork, really fast, making it very hard for Aljo to land shots, but also get a hold of them. So if Aljo gets a hold of Youssef Zalal and is able to control him and find a submission, well, he can get him out of there early. But subbing Youssef Zalal, I don't know if Sterling's going to be able to do that. So the question is, can Zalal scramble safely, get back to the feet, and discourage Aljo when it comes to the grappling? Because if he can, I think Youssef Zalal can definitely get this fight done because he, to me, is the much better striker, much cleaner, much faster, much more technical. But it worries me. 25 minutes of sticking and moving, being on your bike, that's a long time to be running away from a really good grappler in Aljo who has the ability to take your back and finish you. We've seen Aljo's very, very good on the ground, man. But I am going to side with Youssef Zalal to get this one done by a decision. I'm going to say it's competitive. I'm going to say Aljo has some moments. He's able to get it done, but I think that the damage and the striking totals are going to favor Zalal in this fight. And we've seen Youssef is very good on the ground. He's got a very good submission game as well. He's got a very good submission game. Very slick on the ground. Defensively with his grappling, we've seen with the wrestling, he can tend to struggle, which could be a problem because Aljo's lanky. He's able to just kind of lock in those long arms, get a submission, and Aljo's very good, man. This is a very good fight, but I feel like it's going to come down to the speed and the versatility that Zalal brings to the table, the footwork, the movement. I feel like it's going to give Aljo some problems, but having said that, Aljo's got that kicking heavy style to where he's very dependent upon kicking at range, so Zalal will probably have to close him down, get into the phone booth, and try to land some shots. So I think this is a close fight, but I'm going to side with Youssef Zalal to get this done. I think the speed, the footwork, mixing up of the shots, and Aljo, if he goes for a level change, he's got to be very careful of that knee up the middle by Zalal. That Factory X Muay Thai style, right? They're very good on the feet, very good lateral movement. They move a lot, and so does Zalal. It's going to be interesting to see him keeping that pace up for 25 minutes. And if Sterling is not able to get him out of there early with a submission, that means that he's basically going to have to take down Zalal in every single round and find a way to keep him there. Because if he gets back up to the feet and Zalal's able to have an answer for the takedowns, I think Zalal has a pretty decent advantage on the feet, especially when it comes to the technique and the speed. But Aljo, very awkward, good ground game. but I'm going to go with Youssef Zalal in this fight. He's got the momentum. He's been really looking really good since he's came back into the UFC and looking very dangerous. His speed frustrates guys. I think he can dot up Sterling on the feet, outscore him, have some answers for the grappling of Sterling, and edge one out and get it done by decision. But I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if Sterling's ground game ends up being a little bit of a step ahead of Zalal, and Aljo ends up either submitting him or controlling him and finding a way to get it done himself. So competitive fight, good fight. Might be a little bit on the more boring side where you're going to have Sterling trying to track him down, Zalal sticking and moving for a majority of the fight. So might be a little bit underwhelming, but high-level fight, chess match type fight. I'm going to go Zalal to get the job done by decision.